Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Welcome. This is Chanan, and I am here with.
It's Joey Lott. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you.
So, welcome to accessing oneness and living inner peace, which is what this show is really all about. Accessing oneness anywhere in your daily life is fully possible. We want to make that abundantly clear, and that you can live inner peace, right? Not just discover it, but you can actually live what we call an awake life. You can awaken to inner peace and then live that awakening in your daily life, which then transforms not only your life, but many people you come in contact with, your family, and eventually the world at large, which is really what we have a stake in. If you don't know about Joey and I, we both have children. We're married. We're in this modern world. So today's topic is a big one, right? I mean, people come to us because they have a lot of anxiety, unworthiness that is running their entire lives. And many of them have suffered from mass depression, overwhelming sadness. So this is not something to take light. And Joey and I have both been there. Joey's lived there longer than me, right? I went into a really deep mode of depression, which I'll share with you in a moment. But we want you to know, first off, that it's okay. What I mean by that it's okay is that your journey to this point has been your journey to this point so that you can come out of dark and into light. And I just want you to know that that truly is possible for you, that your life doesn't have to be plagued by the battle with sadness, unworthiness, with negative thoughts, that there's actually available right now in this moment within yourself, the possibility of true freedom. So it's not about getting rid of depression or stopping depression. It's possible to allow these negative thoughts, these emotions that come in that then lead to depression and cycle and deepen into depression to actually not run you any longer. So we have to start off with really saying that what we say meditation really is, or awakening really is shifting your attention out of your mind. And the moment that your attention is not stuck in your thoughts, stuck in the individual identity, you recognize that freedom and being is here. And that's right here now. So you have to start being able to see the choice of attention with your mind or attention with being. And what's ironic in that it seems, it's a paradox, that it seems that it's this or that, but it's actually when you choose being includes the thoughts. So you don't have to get rid of the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts. You just recognize that being is the container that holds everything, that everything is infused with being. So at first it might seem like my attention has to go from being in my thoughts to being, right? Because that is a shift and that muscle becomes strong. But really what happens is that your core attention comes home to the truth of who you really are. Just like in the center of that storm, there's stillness. In the center of you, there's stillness and peace already. And I get that if you are in the throes of depression right now, it may not seem that way at all. So, I can share with you that, many of you have accomplished moments of achieving happiness or achieving peace. And then you get smacked back into the negative thoughts, the anxiety, the shame, the unworthiness, and the cycle of that, and then back into depression. So, I had gone to the top of the ladder, supposedly, right? I was sent out by a teacher of mine, mentor Gangaji, and I was sharing awakening with people, and I was genuinely helping people awaken to themselves. I was living an awake life then. I had stopped believing my mind, and I discovered freedom. And I could help others discover that freedom like I've been doing now since 2002. So in the midst of doing all that, I decided I would take psychedelic mushrooms 3 days in a row. Maybe not the best idea, but then again, who knows? That led to my entire life being ripped away. Right? So the irresponsibility of not really taking the proper precaution if I was going to do work with medicine that way created a chaos in my life with my partner. So at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who was very helpful in me sharing awakening with people, she fell into a sad little depression of her own. And I was hospitalized for 2 days, came out of the hospital, lost my job, lost my relationship. Everything had gone chaotic. And because of that, my girlfriend no longer wanted to be with me. I couldn't continue with my job. And I was teaching and sharing, and I just couldn't do that anymore. So I'm at 40 years old, go home to stay with my mother. So 40 years old in the home with my mom is not what you expect to do at 40 years old. And I got to tell you, this is the first time. So I had gone to a place where I recognized being and peace in my life. But now, for the first time in my life, I was separate again. I felt that separation feeling. And I know what that feeling feels like. And I got to tell you, my entire life, I was always, my up was really up and my down was more like a happy. So I had no clue what depression was until then. So I know some of you have suffered for life, your entire life with depression. And that can end. And Joey's going to share his story with you on that. But what I can tell you is for that month was the first time I felt disconnected in 10 years from spirit, from life, from God. I didn't feel one. It was the first time I went so deep into a darkness. I was waking up in tears, going to sleep in tears. And I felt that heaviness as if there was no way out. Now, luckily, throughout the day, I already had the experience of true meditation. So I was still experiencing that everything really was in the ground of okayness, but the darkness of what my mind was doing to me, the bodily emotion, the intensity drove me into such darkness that I really felt withered, like I was fading, like maybe there was no way out. So I want you to know that I get that feeling. And in the past, when I was sharing before that time, how could I even have compassion to talk to you about this? But I get that. And I can tell you that without question, the discovering the way to freedom is meditation. But it's not necessarily the meditation practices that are being taught all over, because those are more things that are trying to get to something called peace. So meditation does work, right? Harvard says meditation helps with depression. The studies are out there. John Hopkins is in on that. So we see that it's possible to discover freedom with depression. But the real question is how? For me, I realized and I knew and had the tools to actually not have the depression run me for more than like 3 weeks to a month. Why? Because I knew that I could sit with this sadness, sit with this pain, drop the stories about it, the meaning that my mind was giving to it, and allow myself to just truly be taken by sadness. Not believing the negative thoughts, not getting rid of them, not getting rid of the ego, not getting rid of the emotion, but actually allowing this intensity to burn without moving toward, away, or against. And in that, there was a mass opening, a deepening of oneness and peace. So I know without question that you do not have to suffer from depression any longer, that it's possible for you to shift and no longer be stuck in your mind and in the battle. So we'll take a look at how is that possible. But one of the first things to see is that the first thing that occurs is there's an emotion within you. And that emotion is unwanted. And the avoidance, the pushing away of that emotion is what spins into the deeper depression. Because then the mind gets triggered with a negative thought, and then we believe that negative thought. And then that thought stimulates more emotion, and it becomes this vicious cycle. We talked about in a video yesterday, the answer always is to slow it down and to see what the next thing is that is occurring. So Joey, I think we'll guide you through that in a moment. But the first thing to recognize is that there is an unwanted experience. And now that you've already suffered from depression or have fear of that, there's so much fear of going back to that or going deeper in that the battle to stay okay and to hold on, embrace yourself, is even more strongly holding out from a true meaning of what wants you to know it. So there's this void that we talk about in access points. And this is really important because the main pattern that keeps us identified in our mind is this avoidance of the unknown. And this void is something that we experience when we're young, right? Something's off about me. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my family? What's wrong with society? But no one really tells us to explore that when we're young. We shove it under the rug and we fill our lives trying to fill that void. And the ego mind, which is always lacking, you're not going to fix the ego mind to stop lacking. Its job is to keep trying to get more and to protect you. You just don't have to believe you are your ego mind any longer. And in that, you can kind of come home to meeting that void. So you don't have to be a survival animal anymore. You come home to meeting that intensity. and it wants to wash over you like a fire. So we have to see the resistance, the indulgence, and the thoughts are keeping you from a direct experience of that which is running your depression. So you'll discover freedom with depression right in the core of that, right in the core of the fire. So you have to first see what is it what you're avoiding. What are you really avoiding? And what do you really want?
Yeah. And it really is actually that simple. And that's the thing that's so amazing about it is we can tell stories about our depression or whatever our experience is. And most of us, we say this in Access Points, one of the primary patterns that we look at in Access Points is the avoidance of the unknown to protect special needs. And we can really just see how we always are making, or the mind is always making these excuses about why nothing's going to work for me. It's like, oh yeah, maybe that worked for him, but it's not going to work for me. Oh yeah, it worked for her, but it's not going to work for me. And we're always making the excuses, well, because my depression is too big. My depression is too long standing. My depression is because of this. My depression is because of that. I don't know why my depression is, and that's why nothing's going to work for me. But actually, really, if you just look, if you just pause for a moment right now, and you can notice the mind might be doing its thing. It might be, saying, no, don't listen to this. Don't look at that. I know better than anything. But if you just are willing to pause and just see what's actually happening, you'll see that actually there's a battle going on. And that battle is that attempt to protect yourself. It's an attempt to get it right, to find that salvation. And there's a fear that if you don't continue the battle, that it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket real fast. Because it can often feel like, especially when you're in the depression, it feels like you're just, if you give up the struggle for a second, you're going to slide right into that bottomless pit, and it's going to be misery and torture forever. And so, just briefly, I'll share a little bit of my story, because it was an interesting, recently somebody asked me this question. It's kind of an innocent question, but they said, tell me about some carefree moments from your life. And I was looking back, and I was really, it's like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm looking back through my, my 30s, well, a good portion of my 30s and my 20s and my teens, and all the way, I couldn't think of any carefree moments. And I realized, wow, that's pretty intense, that from as long as I could remember in my early childhood through my teens and 20s and into my early 30s, that it was just heavy. It was serious. It just felt like a constant struggle. Just what Chanan was saying, that sense of like something's wrong. That sense that something was wrong was there from the beginning, and the struggle to figure it out, and the shame, and the hiding, and all of that was so consistently there. And the struggle with it grew and grew. And I actually remember by the time I was 15, I remember it was the first time that I really seriously considered suicide. So, depression is something that's been in my life for many, many, many years. I experienced that, and it was a constant companion. And it was such that, in fact, I would come up with all the excuses I could. I would say, well, somehow I'm cursed. This is something I inherited from my family. I would say, look, my grandfather was depressed, and my uncle is depressed, and my aunts were depressed. And, I would blame it on anything, everything, circumstances, genetics, heredity, anything. And it took until I was 32, I think, when I had been brought to my knees, and I really couldn't continue the battle anymore. I had been fighting and struggling anything I could. I would try anything, trying to fix it, trying to get rid of it, trying to solve this problem that I imagined was the problem of me and my life. And it got to a point when I was about 32 years old, when I really was just brought to my knees. I was so sick. I really just thought, not only now I don't even have to worry about whether I'm going to kill myself or not, because it just felt like I'm on the brink of death. And that was the moment in which I realized, and blessedly realized, actually, I don't want to die. And that was the moment of choice, that for the first time I realized, wow, I've been giving my attention to the wrong thing. I was giving my attention to this story over and over and over that was saying, it's too much, you can't do it, you're a failure, you're going to lose, you might as well kill yourself. And in that moment, I realized, that's not true. What's actually true is that I'm feeling. And those feelings I don't understand. And those feelings seem big. And the mind doesn't know what to do with that. So if I realize in this moment, as I did, that I actually don't want to die, then what's the choice that's available? And it's just, for me, it was to recognize that battle that had been going on, the battle to solve it, to fix it, to get rid of it, that I had been giving all of my energy to, all of my attention to for my whole life. And to finally realize I don't have to do that. And in that, there's a direct meeting. And that's the last thing the mind wants to do. All of our conditioning says run. And we can see that for generations, that's what's been going on. You know, it's not like our generation or my generation is the first generation to experience depression. It's been going on for a long time. And just like Chanan said, nobody taught us. It's so innocent. It's not like we're guilty of anything here. Just nobody taught us that trying to escape from our own experience is the wrong direction, that that's actually suffering, and that that's actually what leads to the depression. Because depression is not the direct experience. That's the real discovery, is that depression is not the real direct experience. Depression is the idea about it. Depression is a projection into the future. It's not now. It's a split second from now. But right now is not depression. Right now is this. And the only way to meet that and to really discover it is to have the courage to put down the armor, to end the battle right now. And you know, it's so obvious actually when we take a look at it. You know, if we really want peace, you can see that if there's a war going on and you say I want peace, then you can't be serious about wanting peace if you're still fighting. When you're serious about peace, you lay down the weapons, you take off the armor. And that's what it is with depression. If you want freedom from depression, it's not about continuing to try to defeat the depression. That's you trying to win against life, against your own life. And if you're winning against life, what's the result? Death. So we don't want to win against life. What we want is to actually join in consciously and really meet our own experience and discover what it is directly, not the idea of it. And that's true freedom. And for me, that radically changed everything. Not because the feelings and sensations or even the thoughts went away. I still have plenty of negative thoughts, but it's just that I don't have to battle with them because I've learned through experience and repeatedly inquiring that it's actually possible. Well, forget about that for a second, that actually the effort necessary to pick up the weapons is too exhausting, and that peace is effortless. It might be frightening sometimes. It might be intense sometimes, like all of life, like love, like orgasms, like anything. But that's the choice, is to say yes to life, to say yes to this moment, regardless of what the mind has to say about it.
Yeah, what Joey's pointing to and what he's saying really is really important to hear, and that there's a vulnerability that's calling forth from you, a space of absolute trust. And that can seem really scary depending on where you are in the course of your depression, right? Maybe you're not depressed right now, or maybe you're really feeling deeply depressed. And by the way, if you are, reach out for help to whatever hotline, to whatever doctor, to whatever help is truthful to you right now. It's not for us to tell you what to do or not do. You have to trust yourself on what that is to help support you where you are. If you are in a deep space of darkness and are having some kind of, suicidal thoughts, then you need to reach out to somebody immediately. That needs to be said, I think, when we're talking about this topic. And, we can probably put a hotline number even below, because that just needs to be said, that you reach out to others, because we're all in this together. There are other human beings that care. There are other human beings that are going through what you're going through. And the willingness to reach out is important. And you have to also recognize and see what's so crucial is for us to recognize that this vulnerability creates an opening, because that opening is really already there. The vulnerability allows you to recognize that being that you are is already whole and at peace. That I promise you, even know how much the pressure, the intensity of the life that it feels like it's pushing upon you, that it is like, the pressure of squeezing coal to create a diamond. You are already the diamond that's hidden in yourself. And when the fog isn't there, even for a moment, you know that. You know that. And that's the thing in you that probably knows, I don't really want to die. I just want to be free from this hell. So to recognize you're picking up the weapons. And this is a process. Mm-hmm. All right. We're not going to accomplish the end of depression for you in this talk with you. And we're not talking about a magic poof. We're talking about, but right now you directly can know that there is the core of you right now, that you being, that awareness of whatever emotion or tension that you're having, that awareness itself, if you just turn your attention and notice, if there's a sensation right now in your body, just notice, is there awareness of that sensation? There really has to be. And just noticing that awareness, you can investigate and see, is this awareness itself having a problem with my feeling? And you'll see that awareness itself is already whole and okay. In fact, being, awareness is allowing everything. So when you shift your attention to being, to this great allowing, we call it often in access points, join the allowing, then you actually put down the armor, you don't pick up the weapons, and you allow yourself to be utterly vulnerable. And that vulnerability allows an intimacy, a close intimacy with that which you've been yearning for. It's not looking for happiness that is the opposite or away from sadness or depression, because that looking for that opposite is going to flip back to the other opposite at some point. It's only going to give you temporary fulfillment. You see, you want to meet the whole coin, happiness and sadness. They can't be separated. So the thing is that we think really the root deeper than sadness is unworthiness. So that void we were talking about, it's the fear of unworthiness. And we all have that. Some people have it running us even deeper. So the ego mind is running from the fear of unworthiness. That's its job. Without trying to fix the negative thoughts, get rid of these emotions, we start seeing that these are all an invitation to a direct meeting. And that it's the repression of the unworthiness that creates the anxiety. All right? The indulgence of the unworthiness that leads to sadness, that leads to a poor me story, that leads to, if we go deeper into that indulgence, leads into depression. And it's really the accumulation of meaning and story being labeled on what is, right? If you don't like the word awareness, then call it energy. There's the energy that's here right now, not the energy that you feel. That's a feeling that you're having or a sensation, and that comes and goes. And what is always here, that energy allows this meeting. So if you take the label off the unworthiness or the shame or that you're no good, and you don't believe it for a moment, you just give yourself an instant just to notice you're here, just to stop. And the easiest of our access points is stop, smile, breathe, be. You just stop. It doesn't mean you have to stop what you're doing in life, just a pause. And you allow your attention to move to a smile. You might be, I don't feel like smiling. Well, that's great, because a smile, even a fake smile, does for your body amazing things, and it definitely helps change your serotonin levels. So you may discover that your argument with smiling has a lot to do with the battle. So it doesn't take a lot to smile. So you let your attention move from pausing to a smile and to a breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Stop, smile, breathe, be. You don't have to do the being, just notice that you are. So if you do this 3 times in a row, you just pause, smile, attention to your breath, in, out. Notice that being is here. You do that 3 times in a row. What we can tell you is that there will be a shift to noticing being. And from that space, it's not about getting rid of the sensation, not about getting rid of the negative thoughts, not about getting rid of sadness, depression, unworthiness, but finally not having to battle that shift. You see, if you do stop, smile, breathe, it will create that shift 3 times in a row, and then you'll have that space. And that space is going to call forth for you to meet the fire of the intensity of that void that the body mind's running from. And that's not easy to do on your own. It's just not. It's just not. So Joey and I are here as mentors for you. And what we do in Access Points is we really help you get clear on that shift, that you can access yourself here. And that what we start to see, one of the main patterns of the operating system, there's 5 main patterns of the operating system. There's a 6th that is bodily. And that bodily is we start to notice that when there's some kind of tension or emotion here, there's either indulgence or repression from the body, and the mind kicks in with it, right? So that there's the body's already jumping out of the fire. It doesn't want anything to do with that intensity. So what is the natural, the normal way, not natural, normal way that we go about it? We push something on top of that. We repress that down. And by repressing that away, that tension creates what? Unworthiness. No, I can't let you be here. Like a child that's been hated its whole life, that keeps coming for you. It's been pushed away. So how can you be whole if you can't allow everything of yourself? And it's not by trying to get to some future happiness. It's got to be an integration of everything that you are. And again, I promise you, your unique DNA is unlike any other. You are by no mistake. You cannot be taken out of life. That's so important to know. Suicide is no solution because there is no end to consciousness. So you can't be taken out of consciousness. You'll just land somewhere else. So finally, freedom can be discovered here by this direct experience. And by you allow yourself to recognize that the indulgence, the repression, the resistance, that is actually a friend. I know that sounds crazy. And I know that you've been through enough suffering to say, what the hell? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm trying to point you to something to recognize that the tension is an invitation. And the typical way, the program way, yes, we call it the individual mind trance and access points. So I understand right now you are probably stuck in your mind 90% of the time, like most of humanity is. And that your normal reactive response is exhaustive. It's tiring. And you think that maybe there's no hope. And I'm letting you know that all of that tension, even those thoughts, are pointing you to something else. If it's not what you think it is, and you notice you can shift, then that tension is like a bell ringing. Your typical response is to deal with it, fight it, battle it, believe the mind about it, go have to do something to fix it. And for a moment, if you allow that tension to allow you to notice that unworthiness is here. Now, it's important. I'm not pointing to the indulging of unworthiness, right? Saying letting unworthiness be here, would it mean, okay, I'm going to feel unworthy, and then feeling unworthy has a bodily thing to it and then a mental story about it and that you're no good and all this stuff. See, that's not what we're pointing to. I'm pointing to that the energy, without even calling unworthiness, that feeling of shame and unworthiness, to allow it to be here 1,000% without indulging and without resisting, will show you the direct doorway to heaven and freedom and peace. So again, very difficult to do on your own, either not, if not with us, with somebody else. But go work with a mentor. Go work with somebody who has been there, who has been through depression, has discovered freedom. So don't look towards somebody who talks about it but actually hasn't been through it, who talks about it but actually hasn't been able to guide people over and over and over again to discover this freedom, whether it's fear that's running you, anxiety, depression, unworthiness, sadness, panic attack, whatever that is. We have guided people. Joey's suffered from OCD, other people with OCD who work with us, on and on, you know, people who have issues with chemicals, people have issue with their nervous system, people who literally can't walk and have bodily pain daily. So if this has happened for them, it can happen for you. But again, if it's not with us, with anybody who is proper to work with you, reach out. You don't have to be in this alone, because you're really not. The world is supporting you. Life is supporting you. Breath is supporting you. So what Joey and I do with Access Points, over 8 weeks, we show you how you can shift your attention out of your mind. And as with each access points, there's 5, you shift. And as you start to notice that meditation is occurring daily, that this opening is occurring all the time. So when you become open, a lot of things you were pushed away, right? You can't be whole if half of you has been pushed away. Wholeness is an integration, allowing everything. So as you learn this freedom with emotion process, you start to invite emotion. You learn to welcome everything. And if everything's welcome, you're not running from anything and nothing's running you. Isn't that freedom? And that's possible for you. So when we guide people over the 8 weeks, they're shifting, they're recognizing how the thoughts are grabbing on, trying to co-opt your life energy all the time in your mind. And then you don't have to believe your mind at all. And as you open an awareness, you're available to not pick up the armor, to not pick up the knife, the battle, the gun, to not go to battle any longer, to end the war within yourself. So reach out to us. We have a meeting coming up. There's a meeting coming up. You go to brianmark.com/oneness, and we have a meeting in Oneness, Awakening to Your True-OneSelf, which is an introduction to the Access Points process. This is a revolutionary process. For us to claim that it's not would be doing a disservice to ourselves, to you, and what we're up to in the world. We have, without a question, seen over and over again that people that have been at this for 30 years or beginners awaken to their True-OneSelf and then can be free in this inclusiveness, this vulnerability, and live in absolute trust. And that's where flow, self-love occurs from. You deserve that self-love. So we will do everything possible to keep asking you to join us for these meetings, to do access points, because we know it works. And access points is an 8-week process. Our entire team and Joey are available to you daily through this process. So you will have the support to meet whatever it is you need to meet. So come get an introduction to this, see what this is all about. You go to brianmark.com/oneness. The link is below, and you can join us for this next meeting in Oneness. All right, Joey, anything else you'd like to share there?
No, I think that's absolutely perfect. I hope that people do join us and keep watching these. You know, it's always valuable to connect in this way and to hear the message over and over and over, because if not now, then tomorrow or the next day, it will click. So just keep coming, keep listening, and we hope to see you there at our next meeting.
That's right. And you know that if you liked something about this, hit that like. If you loved this, then hit that love. And even more importantly, share. Really share this message of love. You know, if you've grown with us and you've been around us, then you know that you can trust us, that, you know, we truly are ourselves. And you may see ads on Facebook, and those are ads because we know how important it is for people to do access points to awaken. But again, if not with us, with somebody, don't think you're alone in this. You're not alone. I promise you that. And as hard as it feels, you were built for this. There is no other you. So we ask you to join this movement of awakening by sharing the love, by taking responsibility for yourself, and knowing that suffering can end for you. You can learn to be comfortable with what's uncomfortable, and there can be suffering without you suffering any longer. You don't have to be stuck in the story of your life anymore. You don't have to be stuck in the me story. You can find freedom now. All right, so join us. Let us guide you in that, or keep joining us here, as Joey said. Lots of love, everybody. It's been beautiful to be with you. We'll see you soon.
Bye for now.